So get back to the lecture, the front page of the book. We were doing the evolution of drama, that how it started. It started from cultic ritual practice. Okay, fine. So drama has its roots in cultic ritual practice, and the features of it are still stylized in classical Greek drama that started somewhere in 5th century BC. If you remember, once in the class, I have told you that drama started with the concept of tragedy in Greek times, somewhere around 5th century BC. So first we look into the concept of tragedy, what tragedy is, in order to understand and link it with the drama and its modern evolution. That will encompass the history as well, the historical view as well of drama. So ancient tragedies and comedies were performed during festivals in the honor of Dionysus, that is a Greek god, the god of wine. While drama was one of the main genres in classical antiquity, its importance waned with the dawning of Middle Ages. So we can say that drama witnessed a decline in the Middle Ages. Keep in mind one thing, you need to connect Middle Ages with the Dark Ages. And if you remember, I've told you that these are called Dark Ages due to the decline in the literature, a ban on learning, with an absolute control of church over all human activities. So drama was banned somewhere in the Middle Ages, which is why it is called the dawning of the drama. It's when during the Middle Ages. After the turn of millennium, however, some simple forms of drama re-emerged. And what types of the drama in the beginning emerge in the word? They are called mystery and miracle plays. And these plays particularly revolve around religious, allegorical, or biblical themes, which are adapted from Christian liturgy and dramatized for the performance in the front of the churches and in the yards of the inns. So these particular types of the plays, you can say that there are two types of the plays. They are called miracle plays or morality plays. Remember that both these types of the plays have biblical themes and these are adapted from Christian liturgy. Get back to the book, here it is. The medieval plays, together with the classical Roman plays by Plautus and Seneca, influenced later Renaissance drama, and this is the time the drama reached its peak in the England with the works of Shakespeare and his contemporaries. And when we talk about Shakespeare and his contemporaries, we never forget the two names. Along with Shakespeare, we have Marlowe, who is a dominant figure during the times that drama reached its peak. While classical literary theory overlooks the nature of comedy, Aristotle deals extensively with the general elements and features of tragedy. And in the sixth book of the Poetics, he characterizes tragedy with a particular definition that we have already done in the class, and here it's reiterated with a simpler, you can say, expression that it's a representation of an action. Here he defines tragedy with a representation of an action, and the action is not a simple action, rather, it's heroic and complete. Means it's full in its entirety. At the same time, it is heroic, which represents man in action and does not use narrative through pity and fear, and it affects human emotions and gives him a relief by the end. So there are certain technical key terms that you need to keep in mind. The first thing that you need to keep in mind is how drama evolved or developed. It's in the form of miracle and morality plays. These are biblical in their themes, and they are adapted from Christian liturgy. Means they are adapted from Christian traditions. The next important thing that we must keep in mind is the concept of tragedy and comedy. The concept of tragedy emerged in Renaissance, though it dates back to the time of Aristotle, who first defined tragedy. It emerged in the form of literary works in the age of Renaissance with the works of Shakespeare and Christopher Marlowe. Well, it's Aristotle who first defines tragedy. I want you to please concentrate on the definition, since I'll give you the PDF notes by the end of the lecture. So you need not to write anything. You just need to concentrate on your screen and listen it carefully. When he says that tragedy is an imitation of an action, means every tragedy somehow or the other imitates an action, replicates an action, makes a copy of any action in reality. A tragedy is not something baseless, it's not something quite unrealistic, or it's not so fanciful. Rather, it's a replication or an imitation of an action. So this is a key word. It's an imitation of an action that is serious, having magnitude, complete in itself, in language, with pleasurable accessories. It's also in dramatic form, not in narrative form, with incidents, arousing pity and fear. It's a bit long definition, but this is what Aristotle gave us, and that encompasses all the features of any tragedy. The tragedy started right from the times of Greeks up till today, arousing pity and fear, wherewith to accomplish its catharsis. Emotions. Now, let's understand what tragedy is through the definition of Aristotle. It's an imitation of an action, means replication of human action, a copy of human action. The second important attribute is it's serious. I'm writing 2 on it so that you could keep in mind. Then it has got magnitude. That is the third important feature it has. Means it's of a sufficient length. It's not too short, not to understand the idea, not to deliver the idea, nor it is too long to create boredom and monotony in the mind of the readers that they go headless or they forget the path they are moving. So it's having magnitude. Then it's complete in itself. By complete, I mean it has got a proper beginning, middle, and an end. It's complete in itself. Its language is complete with pleasurable accessories. I think that you must be recalling this definition since I once in the beginning of the course when I started taking it, I told you the definition of tragedy once we were referring to a tragedy of Greek author Sophocles, Oedipus Rex. It's just a cross reference here. I'm writing Sophocles, Oedipus Rex. We're talking the concept of catharsis. And there we did this ID definition. So it's complete in language with pleasurable accessories, the way we have got some accessories with the mobile phones that we pick up, with the laptops. There are always hands-free, there's a charger, a data cable, and maybe a protector, or you can say a phone cover. The same way language has got its own accessories, like its metaphors, similes, synecdoche. We have got symbols and images and motifs as well. So these are the beauty, adornments of language. This is what we call pleasurable accessories. It's always in the form of drama. It's dramatic and not in a narrative form. It's never told in the form of story. It's just performed. It's in performing art. It's acted on the stage. So it's always dramatic. It's in the form of a dialogues. It's the form of the dialogues. It has got some incidents. And what they bring forth? Pity and fear. When you watch a tragedy, when you read it, you feel that there is something quite worse that has happened. There's something quite overwhelming, something that instigates and stirs your emotions, something that might bring forth tears in your eyes. So it brings pity and the feeling of fear. Pity because you feel sorry for the characters, pity because you feel bad about the happenings, you don't like the hero to die, you might not like the characters to suffer. So that is why we say that there is an element of pity. There is an element of fear as well, and it's quite human too. Why? Because when we see something bad happening to somebody, we just get scared that what if the same happens to us? So it always instigates the emotions that are pity and fear, and they're very much important to any tragedy. But within such emotions, there is to accomplish catharsis. So it always ends up in the form of catharsis. And catharsis is again a quite technical term. I want you to please understand it from different perspectives. It's spiritual cleansing. It's purgation of excessive emotions. It's like an outlet. emotions. So Aristotle thinks that a tragedy must be a replication of any action that is related to one's life and it's serious. There is no margin to entertain oneself. It's loaded with something quite grave, something linked with human life and maybe death and all the significant themes. It has got a magnitude, it's complete, it engages us, it involves us in such a way that it's got proper beginning, middle, and end, and its language is quite decorative. It's loaded with a lot of accessories in the form of metaphors and similes, images and motifs and symbols. And then it's in the form of a drama. It's in the form of a dialogue, and it's not in a narrative form. It must arouse the emotions of pity and fear in human mind and heart. By this way, it engages them to complete the tragedy and to feel catharsis by the end when they complete it. So this is what a tragedy is. Now, please get back to the previous. Okay, so this is what tragedy means, and this is what Aristotle defines it as. What we ended up in the last paragraph is that Shakespeare and his contemporaries marked the most prominent era in the evolution of any tragedy. So this is tragedy, but we can't ignore the comedy as well, which is equally important in the genre of drama. Comedy, on the other hand, has a humorous themes in order to entertain the audience. It's often regarded as a stylized continuation of primitive regeneration cults such as symbolic expulsion of winter by spring. The fertility symbols culminates in the form of weddings, which comprise standard happy endings in the traditional comedies. So there are happy endings, there's something that linked with humorous themes, and it's intended to entertain the audience. This is how you define comedy as. That it keeps humorous themes, it's intended to entertain the audience, and it's always marked with the happy endings in the traditional perspective. The most important and the oldest forms of the plays are those of historical plays. And keep in mind that the historical plays also started developing from Renaissance. And the first most prominent figure or the most prominent playwright in the Renaissance age is Shakespeare. His Richard II and Henry V are the best examples in the English history to mark the evolution of historical plays. These plays portray a historical event or figure, but through the addition of contemporary references, transcend the historical dimension and make general statements about human weakness and virtues. So we can say that apparently these plays are historical in their scope, but in reality they transcend the boundaries of history and they're quite generic in their statements about human weaknesses or virtues. So we can say that these are humanist in their scope. William Shakespeare and Christopher Marlowe revived and developed classical forms of drama. So these were not the one only to develop. Instead, these were those who revived as well. So they revived and developed classical forms of drama, such as tragedy and comedy, and were among the first to reflect on different dramatic genres. There's a passage from Shakespeare's Hamlet, a very, famous tragedy that he has written somewhere by the end of 15th century. And here he wittily testifies his reflection. The best actors in the world, either for tragedy and comedy, history, pastoral comical, historical pastoral, tragical comical, historical pastoral, scene indivisible, or poem unlimited. Shakespeare parodies various mixed forms, which, roughly speaking, can be reduced to the three basic forms of tragedy, comedy, and historical plays. So we can say that Shakespeare has divided play in three forms, and these basic forms are tragedy, comedy, and historical plays. When the Puritans, under the rule of Oliver Cromwell and his contemporary Commonwealth, shut down the English theatres, this is a very important incident, historical incident that influenced drama, is the closing of English theatres by Oliver Cromwell on the basis of moral and religious grounds, that drama was considered as immoral, immoral as well, irreligious, and vulgar. Therefore, in the rule of Oliver Cromwell, somewhere in the mid 17th century, uh, rather it's the early 16th century, that English theatres were banned on the basis of moral and religious grounds, and drama lost its status as a major genre. Although religion exercised only a brief influence on drama in England in this drastic way until the restoration of monarchy, that it's Oliver Cromwell whose monarchy is restored, and the consequences of America, definitely with the development of technological and social boundaries. So drama regained its importance, and in the history, when we talk about the development of drama, we say that this very incident of the closing of theaters in English drama in English countries, they led to the fall, a decline of the reputation of English drama. During the Restoration period in the late 17th century, however, we have got the comedy of manners and Restoration comedy. They were quite prominent. The comedy of manners, it's in the late 17th century. It particularly portrays citizens from the upper echelons of society. So it's about aristocracy, after society in witty dialogues was very popular. So Restoration comedy aimed at criticizing the shallow manners and morals of the people that time. That is why it's called comedy of manners. Comedy means to make fun of, or humor of manners, means manners of elitists, the aristocracy of that time. So here, in such type of comedies, Restoration comedies, we can say, the playwright would aim at criticizing the shallow manners and morals of the people that time, particularly the elite people that time, the elite class, aristocracy of that time. William Congreve, The Way of the Word, page 53, and William Wycherley, The Country Wife, are well-known examples. So comedy of manners, previously we start with the heroic drama, and Shakespeare is a significant example over there. Then we move to Restoration comedy, and here please do not miss to mention William Congreve, The Way of the Word, and The Country Wife as the best examples. The third very important type of drama is that of historical heroic drama. And the most significant figure is that of John Dryden. His famous play, All for Love, tries to recreate and adapt epic themes on stage. And so, in the Romantic period of the early 19th century, England produced a closet drama, a drama that is intended not to be performed on the stage, but to be read in the private. I think I've assigned this very literary term to some student to define. Okay, someone wants me to repeat restoration comedy. Actually, restoration comedy is famously known as comedy of manners. Comedy of manners. And if you could see the side notes I have made here, that this particular type of comedy satirizes or criticizes the shallow manners and morals of the elite class of that time. Because it was said that the elite class or the aristocracy of that time was sheer materialistic. They were involved in quite insignificant activities. If you remember the epic poem, mock epic poem, Rape of the Lock, it's a cross-reference. I'm writing CF here that is used for cross-reference for all my online classes. Okay, catharsis. Okay, that's gone. Okay, I'll repeat it by the end of the lecture, please. Just continue with the comedy of manners. I'll repeat catharsis. That is an older point that was somewhere in the beginning of the lecture. I'll expand it by the end of the lecture. So what I was talking about, Rape of the Lock. Though it's not a drama, keep in mind it's not a drama. It's a restoration mock epic poem. It's written by Alexander Pope. What do we call it? Rape of the Lock. I've told you that in this very epic poem, there is a central character of Lady Belinda. And what were her pastimes? That every day she'll wake up, she'll have her laptop, and she'll have thousands of attendants who would prepare her, and then she will go have a round of the Hyde Park in England. Then she'll play chess with a group of young men. She'll try to win. And this was what the life of the ladies of that time was. And there's a character parallel to Lady Belinda, that is Lord. This is Lady Belinda, and he was Lord Cyril. So the whole epic revolves around the insignificant and meaningless actions that the young people of aristocratic class were engaged with during that time. We've got 10 minutes to end up our lecture. Same is the case with the restoration comedy or comedy of manners. It revolves around the sheer materialistic and insignificant activities of aristocracy of that times. Why we call it comedy of manners? Because manners is manners are something quite important. Manners are indicative of one's identity. Manners are indicative of one's religion, one's culture, one's morality as well. But the comedy of manners is like to make fun of manners. So in restoration comedies, the playwrights they tried to criticize or satirize the low morals and manners of the people in 17th century. So this is the aim, or you can say the prime objective of any restoration comedy. It's called restoration comedy because the time is the restoration time, and it's comedy because it makes fun of the fake, manners that people would adopt during the 17th century. So the next important thing is heroic drama, drama that sets, very fake, you can say, hero, not the classical hero, the way we have seen in Aristotelian perspective, the real hero. Instead, it will talk about, it will mock the character of hero. It will create a very, a dummy type of the hero. And John Dryden is very important writing for heroic dramas. The most important that he has written is All for Love, that I expect you will study somewhere in the seventh semester, when you'd be able to understand the concept of tragedy and comedy and how would you differentiate it. And in this very play, All for Love, he recreates epic themes in the form of a drama. It means that he brings up epic themes on stage in the form of the dialogues. So, in the Romantic period of the early 19th century, England produced the closet drama. So, this is another type of the drama. Again, I am recapitulating the previous idea. You started with historical plays, then you went to the, what was the second one? You went to the comedy of manners, and then here you are. No, it's historical plays, then tragedy, then comedy, comedy of manners, then heroic drama, and now starts with the closet drama. A closet drama is a special type of the drama which is meant not to be performed on the stage. Instead, it's to be read in the private. That is why we call it closet drama. And P.B. Shelley is the most famous, playwright for closet drama. His Prometheus Unbound is the best example that is known till today to be called the best closet drama. The next important thing that we talk about is the arrival of realism and naturalism in late 19th century. We are not going to discuss it in this last 7 minutes, and I want to dedicate these to your questions in today's lecture so that you could be clear of what we have studied today instead of going ahead and forgetting the track. So if you could just drop the text on WhatsApp or here either so that I could see where you are stuck. Okay, how is catharsis done, Isha? How is catharsis done? Referring back to the concept of catharsis with the side notes I have made, please come on the side notes that I've made about the concept of catharsis. See, here it is. Spiritual cleansing, purgation of excessive emotions, outlet of emotions. Okay, imagine one thing. You watch a movie and the movie is quite miserable. You feel that the hero is stuck at all odds and he's going to die. You never want him to die. You most want him to go ahead and be hero for the rest of the times as well. But he has to die, and he has to die a death for which he's blamed, and he did not murder anybody. He did not commit any sin, but still he is suffering. So that concept of suffering and endurance on the part of the hero for which he suffers. Catharsis is an outlet of that suffering. When you watch a movie, the hero dies, you never want him to die. You cry. Do you cry for the nights? Do you cry for the months or years or weeks? No. You just get normal. You just get back to normal, perhaps in a minute, perhaps in an hour, or maybe so. So what's that? This is catharsis. Every tragedy ends with an outlet by the end. Even if the hero dies, you will see that the evil meets its end. Even if you see that the hero is no more there in the movie, he loses everything, you will see that those who are the culprits, those who are the evildoers, they reach to their conclusion. So by this way, you feel that the excessive emotions of rivalry, the excessive emotions of revenge that instigates your heart, that kindle your heart to take revenge on the part of the hero, and they all are calm. Why? Because of this catharsis, the concept of catharsis, which is very much present. This is the term that is borrowed from psychology. It's something that is derived from neurology. So I think it's clear now. Dark Age. I want you to please browse today about features of Middle Ages. I think I delivered a lecture on Middle Ages and Dark Ages, but still, if you're stuck, just open the lecture. If you're still stuck, then you can tell me tomorrow in the next class, we'll explain. Any other question? Yes, Sajid Ali, you have got some question? You may speak now. You are not mute. You may speak now. Any question you have got?
No, ma'am, it's okay.
It's fine. The things are
It's
clear,
fine.
I hope.
Yes.
Okay, fine. Any other question? We have got 2 minutes. Okay, fine. For the next class, I'll inform you about the time of your class dinner. You have got some question, I guess.
Yes, ma'am. Can you please repeat about the heroic drama? It is just used to describe the fake hero. Is that all?
Yeah, exactly. If you remember the types of novels that were there was one type where the fake hero is portrayed. What do we call him? If you just remember Spanish, it was picaresque hero, isn't it?
Yes, ma'am.
So,
Yes, ma'am. It's a picture.
but you can't say that these are picaresque plays, but picaresque heroes are fake heroes. The same is done, in case of a heroic plays here by John Dryden, because John Dryden has replayed his, play with witty dialogues. Witty dialogues to excite laughter, but not to excite laughter only, but to do some social instruction. That's why we call such type of
Okay.
plays as didactic. So comedy is not meant to entertain only, but it's didactic as well. Comedy is not meant to entertain only, but it's didactic as well. And by didactic, I mean giving a moral lesson. Fine.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
All the students can ask questions now. Like you all are unmute now.
Rohina.
Ravaiha, you've got some question? Yes, you may ask, Ravaiha. So there are no questions? Okay, this last minute about the next class. I'll just drop your text on WhatsApp probably tomorrow anytime, but you need to get ready.